You're listening to the Productive Therapist Podcast, the world's greatest and most brilliant resource for busy therapists who'd rather be laying on a beach in Hawaii. Every week we share helpful tips on where to put what, how to do this, that, and the other, and the best way to get your ducks in a row. And now here's your host, licensed therapist, head nerd, and productivity Yoda, Uriah Guilford.
Hello, and thanks for joining me. If you have or are thinking about having a waiting list, you're not alone. Many practices are busier than ever right now, and successfully managing a waitlist is something you need to know how to do to grow your practice. In the following episode, one of the top 3 most popular, we share with you the secrets of creating and managing a waitlist that will really help you grow your practice. Hello, and welcome to this month's training for Therapy Intake Pro. So glad that you are going through this program, and I hope that this one is particularly helpful for you. Hey, Tracel, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. So this time we're talking about managing a wait list. And part of the reason we're doing this training, honestly, is because it's come up so many times in the Q&A calls over the last few months.
Yes.
And I think this is a consistent challenge, if you will, for busy practices that generate a lot of referrals and are constantly balancing hiring clinicians and signing up new clients. But I think it's a sort of a unique growing challenge for more practices because of the mental health needs of the American public, basically. And sort of the system is being a little bit overwhelmed. So we as practice owners and obviously intake coordinators have to figure out how to best manage this so that it doesn't there's actually several challenges that we'll get into, but I think we have some best practices to share with you that will help make your job better and also provide better customer service. But it's a big issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because you have to decide, is it going to be beneficial? And if you have one, how do you keep up with it? All those things that we're going to talk about. But you may have a practice that's not experiencing this at the moment, but it definitely, as you mentioned, with the state of mental health, it can happen to you really quickly. And then if you already have something in place, you'll be ready to go.
For sure. And obviously practices that already have an intake coordinator on board are expanding, have expanded, and are probably generating more referrals already versus maybe a solo practice that doesn't have quite as much happening, right?
Right.
Okay. So we've got some beautiful slides here to show you and walk through. Let me bring that up here. Okay. So the first thing, and this is going to sound really basic, but we're going to start from the beginning and then go through, and we won't spend a lot of time on the things that are fairly common sense. But what is a waiting list? For us, it's a simple spreadsheet that looks a whole lot like the referral log that we've showed you, that basically tracks potential clients who are looking for a therapist. And this can actually be, I kind of prefer it this way, but this can actually be just another tab on the referral log.
Right.
So that you can quickly move people from the waiting list potentially to the referral log. So that's at the very basic level, that's what this waiting list is.
I also like that tab because as an intake coordinator, you don't want to have all these different documents and try to remember where things are. And if you just use a separate tab at the bottom, then you're always going to, whether you need the referral log or the wait list, it's all together.
It's also sort of a visual reminder because,
right.
And we'll get into this in a little bit, but one of the things that can happen is you have a waiting list, but you forget to look at it, you forget to update it, et cetera. So at least, you're probably in and out of the referral log every day. So that tab down there will remind you to take a look at it.
Right.
Keep up to date with that. Okay. So that's what it is. When should you use it? Pretty self-explanatory as well, but when all the clinicians in the practice are full or the availability of the clinicians does not match up with the potential client. So pretty obvious there. My practice is we are currently creating and maintaining a wait list right now. So I can speak to that, but all of our clinicians are full, and I hired somebody about, I guess, a month and a half ago or so. And she is adding clients, but at a little bit of a slower pace. So it's like we're full and then we're not full and then we're full.
Right.
So we are doing that now. And let's see, next up is why to use it. So it might make sense for the potential client to wait for the right therapist. We'll talk about pros and cons of that in a minute. I'm thinking about in my practice, just as an example, Jim he works a lot with middle school boys who are on the autism spectrum. And in the area where we are, there's not a whole lot of therapists that do that work. And so the wait list, especially for him, makes a whole lot of sense because people that want to work with him are often looking to work specifically with him because of that specialty.
Right.
And they're willing to wait. Because it's less, it's less of a crisis situation and more of a, we want to wait for the best therapist. So that definitely makes sense. Also, it can be a good idea to use a wait list because availability changes constantly. I mean, clients are always coming and going, and therapists' schedules are in flux, which is obviously one of the challenges of the job of the intake coordinators to keep up with all of that.
Right.
So you could put somebody on a waiting list today, and there could potentially be an opening tomorrow.
Right.
It
right.
depends.
How many times did it happen to you where you had a client that you were expecting to see a little bit longer and their situation changes and all of a sudden they tell you, this is my last visit. And now you have an opening that you weren't expecting.
Right. And then lastly, it can be a good way to convert more callers to clients. Some percentage of the people on a waiting list, if you keep up with it, will actually become clients. A lot of them won't, but some of them will. And then that alone makes it worth it to maintain a waiting list.
Right.
At least that's one of the pros on that side of things. Yeah. So simple spreadsheet, no need to overcomplicate it. Keep it on the same Excel doc or whatever you use in another tab. And we actually, to be honest, we go back and forth from having a waiting list and maintaining it to not. And we have a lot of experience of maintaining waiting lists for productive therapists for therapists that want our services too. So
that's true.
We've got a dual experience there. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what are the pros of using a waiting list? We talk a lot about this, and you've heard this in our previous trainings, but it can be good customer service, and that's something that we value very highly. And it's definitely going the extra mile because it's pretty easy for any business just to say, no, sorry, we're all out. We have no more appointments. No therapist for you. I was going to make a Seinfeld reference there, but I won't. No therapy for you.
Right.
So that's very simple. People will often appreciate it if you are offering and following through to keep them updated on potential openings.
Right. Especially if they're hearing the same thing from multiple people that they've called. Nope. Sorry, we're full. Sorry, we're full. And then if you say that, but we have a waiting list, then that is that good customer service.
Definitely. And like we mentioned just a minute ago, it can help convert more callers to clients. And that's always going to be a pro. That's always going to be a positive thing to be able to help more people because it happens all the time when therapists' availability opens up and maybe there's an ebb and flow in the referral, the incoming referrals. And so it's actually good for the potential clients. It's also good for the therapist because they're going to hopefully stay full more quickly if we've got this waiting list. That's important to say. And then, like I was talking about with Jim, it can work really well. I think it works especially well if the person calling is looking for a particular specialty or a particular therapist. And this happens with eating disorder treatment, maybe OCD, or honestly, all kinds of specialties that you can think of that people are specifically seeking that out, EMDR, et cetera.
Right.
And those folks will be more likely to become clients because they are on the waiting list sort of with a purpose, not just, not to say that any presenting problem is more important than others, but some really work well with a really good therapist match. Right.
And I was thinking about when you mentioned that before, this would be good for somebody who's not in a crisis. So as an intake coordinator, that probably is above your pay grade, trying to figure out if this is a crisis situation or not. So it'd be a great conversation to have with a practice owner. Is there anybody that should not go on a wait list that you would like me to refer out?
Right. That makes sense. And part of that, to use a therapist term, assessment is definitely not above the pay grade because when you're as the intake coordinator, when you're talking to the people on the phone, you're already doing this honestly, just intuitively. Right. You're figuring out how important is this? Is it a parent calling with the teenager who is spending too much time on social media and not talking to the parents?
Right.
Okay, low-level crisis.
Right.
Is it, and I'll just use this example of teenager, right? Is it a parent calling with a teenager who just ended up in juvenile hall? Well, they wouldn't be calling for therapy likely, but another example, they stole the car and crashed it. Mm-hmm. Or they're suicidal, something like that. High level of crisis. Like those folks should not be on a waiting list. Mm-hmm. So you are already doing those kinds of assessments. Other sort of higher level clinical assessments, then yes, for sure, leave that up to the therapist.
Right.
But you are on sort of the front lines making those decisions. Mm-hmm. And if you are maintaining a waiting list, you might put some people on that waiting list and not put other people on the waiting list because of that very reason, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the cons of using a waiting list? I guess we're really on top of it. We're getting ahead of ourselves on each one of these, right?
I know.
People in crisis need to get help as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And so they should be helped sooner. And this is more of an issue when you've got, let's say, a larger practice or any size practice really with a long waiting list. Because if the waiting list is, there's already 20, 30, 40, 50 people on there, or it's, months out, maybe somebody in crisis can wait 48 hours, 72 hours.
Right.
But not 2 to 4 weeks
mm-hmm.
and not longer than that for sure. And in some ways it's, I wouldn't say is it unethical? It might be unethical to put somebody on a waiting list who is in crisis. So I don't recommend it.
Right.
And then next up is it can become quickly unmanageable, just in terms of if you're getting a high volume of calls and there's no openings for a length of time, just the work that it takes to maintain the waiting list and getting back to people on a regular basis, it can end up taking up a lot of admin time, which is the next point there, two points down. And that can be honestly frustrating for the intake coordinator. And something I didn't put on here, but this is something we've heard about recently, is that if you are talking to people every day and constantly saying no to them, and they are in need, they want a therapist, they're ready to get help, and you're saying, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no, that actually takes a toll on you because you're doing this job to some degree because you want to help.
Right.
And it's hard to say no to people. So I think that just goes to the well-being of the intake coordinator.
Right.
And so if I'm talking to a practice owner and that's the situation, and I did this recently, I'm telling them, let's set up this other system where you don't even offer phone calls to these people because you're going to have to just turn them down. And that's difficult. So there are ways to do that and still maintain a good customer service. In that situation, just to share this one, my recommendation was to have people fill out a Google form on the website. And then there's basically a way to automate the waiting list. And then that entry goes straight to a Google sheet, which is the waiting list, right?
Right.
And then once they submit that form, then they're sent to a page with trusted referrals. So take the phone call out of the mix, and this is a way for them to get some referrals really quickly, and also be added to a waiting list with expectations set.
Right. That's a really nice kind of mix of both things.
Yeah, I like that one. Because at some point you can't and you shouldn't talk to all the people because you're just turning them down. So that is important. And then if you don't manage the waiting list well, people can become disappointed, and it's sort of that negative customer service. But have you ever called a company or had interacted with a business in some way and they said, we'll get back to you, or we'll do X, we'll follow up with you in this amount of time, and then they don't all the time.
Right. That's poor customer service.
That is what we call poor customer service. Yes. So if you don't set expectations correctly, if you don't do that well, people will be upset and disappointed, because if they think they're on the waiting list and then they don't hear from you in 4 weeks or longer, they're like, what is happening? And then they feel dropped.
Right. I remember talking to a practice owner who hadn't made that, I guess, clear to her intake coordinator. And there was somebody who specifically did not look for another therapist because they were on the wait list. And I think it was 2 months later, they called back and they said, I'm checking to see. And the practice owner was the one that took that phone call, and she felt terrible that this person hadn't even looked for any service anywhere else because she had this expectation of being on this wait list and would be helped at this particular practice. So yeah,
that's not a good feeling on either side. Right.
Right.
And then the last one on this list is that it's a really pretty small percentage of people that are going to go from the waiting list to an active client. We don't really have data on this necessarily. It's going to vary from practice to practice, but it's a low number for sure. So that's not a reason not to do it, but it's just a potential con. So if the system is not streamlined, and if you're spending a lot of time talking to people and telling them no, even if you're giving them referrals and doing good customer service, it's just not going to be a huge number on any given week that actually become clients. So it's a pro and a con. Some people will become clients. A lot of people won't. So I just thought add that to the list because it's something to consider. All things equal, I think maintaining a waiting list is a good idea as long as you follow these guidelines and do it well. I think there's no reason not to if you do it in the right way.
Right.
Okay, so best practices. We touched on a few of these, but first one here is to keep the list up to date daily and weekly. If you're going to maintain a waiting list, you have to commit to it. You have to look at it as this is something that's obviously a part of my job, and if I don't maintain it, then people will be disappointed and maybe not served as well as they could be. So keep that up to date daily and weekly, and probably a good thing to do. I mean, if I was in the intake coordinator role, I would simply add a recurring reminder to my task manager, maybe daily, maybe twice a week, whatever frequency makes sense for you, so that I would know and I'd be reminded to go and do that and then check that box and make sure that that's taken care of. So that's the first one. The next one is give realistic estimates. And this is always hard, isn't it?
Yes.
And I could argue for not giving estimates, but at the same time, if you say we're going to put you on the waiting list, but you don't tell them how long it's going to be, like that's not good either. If you went to a restaurant and they said, we'll have a table for you, we can put you on the list, but there's no time frame. No.
Right. And it probably will be the person's next question anyway. If you don't give them an estimate, they might want to know, well, how long is that wait? Right.
So take your best guess. The waiting list is about 2 to 4 weeks. It could be sooner, it could be later, but we will let you know. Right.
Right.
So do the best and it's going to fluctuate. It's going to change, as the waiting list shrinks. Hopefully, the estimated time will shrink as well, and vice versa.
Yeah. That's the other thing I was thinking, is that you don't just want to, out of habit, just say the same figure all the time, the same amount of time, because hopefully that is fluctuating. It's getting less. But yeah, I was headed somewhere else. I can't remember, but you don't just want to always say you also want to err on the side of caution. So maybe project a little bit more time than you think, because somebody's going to be thrilled if you call them in 3 weeks instead of, 4 or 5.
Yeah, definitely don't overpromise and underdeliver. Do the opposite.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why we often recommend on the outgoing message to say we return all calls within 24 hours and often sooner. And then when it's 30 minutes, or 2 hours, they're excited. They're happy. So realistic estimates is important. That's part of the script, if you will, but not a static part of the script. It changes. And then along with that, set expectations with the potential client, specifically about how you're going to keep them updated and how often. And this is honestly the most tedious part of the process. And I've been thinking about ways to streamline that, but most likely you're going to be going through the waiting list and making phone calls, right? Maybe emails possibly, but let them know how often you're going to keep them updated. Will it be every week, every 2 weeks, once a month? what does that look like? So I would probably say, just as an example, we'll let you know about any openings one way or the other within 2 weeks. And feel free to get in touch sooner if you want to, if you need to. So that,
right.
What do you think about that? I think that could work.
I like that. And something was just coming to my mind. Did we talk about this on a Q&A where you did this before? I think previously when you were doing the calls yourself for your practice, was that you got permission to put them on your email list so that you could. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
For sure. So that's helpful. I had another thought on that one.
Sorry.
Yes, no, that's okay. I mean, I do think it would be nice to be able to notify everybody on the waiting list all at once. That would be nice. However, pretty much to my knowledge, there's no electronic health record software out there that has like group messaging or bulk messaging for obvious security reasons.
Right.
But that would be a nice thing to do. However, most email marketing systems, you really can't, because of HIPAA, identify people as clients or potential clients.
Mm-hmm.
So little tricky there, but that does trigger a thought in my mind about how you go through the waiting list. So let's say you've got 10 people on the waiting list.
Right.
You know what I'm thinking, right?
Yes.
You've got 10 people on the waiting list and you've got one opening.
Mm-hmm.
So you start with the oldest. How would you say that? Not the oldest person on the waiting list, but the
person that called the longest ago.
Longest to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you work your way through it. But how long do you wait for that person to respond?
Right.
I think the thing that makes the most sense, it's kind of not that easy to do, but you call from the oldest to the newest, and whoever is available first and responds first gets that opening, right?
Right.
Not necessarily just that person who was on there first, but the person who's the most responsive,
right?
Which is not necessarily fair, right? But it makes sense from managing your time perspective,
right? And then do you have to say no a second time to the person who you called and they didn't return?
Yeah,
somebody else beat them to it.
I mean, for me as a customer, as a potential client, as a consumer, I think the easiest way, most convenient way would be to get a text message, right? If I get a text message that says there's an opening, then I could respond, confirm, do all those kind of things. So, actually that would be the way to do it. I should tell Tiffany about that, because we can use Simple Practice secure messaging to send them a message. However, if they're a potential client, they're not in the system yet. See, I'm thinking through this on the fly, right? And then you got to make sure that you're, using some sort of platform that's HIPAA secure for texting and all those kind of things.
Right. So, because the other situation is, and the reason why I think texting works better is because you have people who can respond quickly to a text while they're at work, but they probably are not allowed to answer the phone depending upon their job. So then they have to wait till they can listen to the voicemail and then call you back. So yeah, if there was a way that you could text people, that probably would be the way to get somebody quicker and not have to tell them no a second time.
I would say that would be best practice. Yeah. So if the practice is using something like maybe Spruce, for example, as for a phone system that has secure texting, go ahead and use that for sure. I think that would be a good call. For some reason, this conversation reminded me of, I don't know why Outback Steakhouse comes to mind, but going to a place, where you have to wait for a table and they give you a buzzer, right?
Yes.
And then it goes off and you've got your table. It's very exciting. If only we could implement that. Yeah.
Right.
So the last one there we already talked about, follow up with them on a regular basis. So those are some best practices. And at any stage of this process, you're going to have to say no to some people, and you're going to do that obviously with empathy and understanding, and always making sure to under promise and over deliver. Don't tell people that something can happen that is not likely to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the alternatives though? Because from a business standpoint, these are potential clients. This is, money going out the door, right? And those people are not landing with the practice. And when I can remember when I was a solo practice and I had more calls than I could take, I was happy to refer them to local therapists that I trusted, but I was always kind of upset because that's potential revenue for the practice.
Right.
So what can you do? The first one is the one that you mentioned, Tracel, a few minutes ago, and I've done that for years, is to offer to add them to the email list. Not identifying them as a client or anything like that, but just as a supportive resource and as a way to keep in touch. So I would say to them, I'm sorry, I don't have an opening right now, and then tell them when I might have an opening, and say I actually send out every week this really great. I think I would say it was great. I don't know. Probably.
Amazing.
This astounding email newsletter. And it's really just, it's focused on parenting teenage boys. And I think you would really benefit from it. Is that okay with you? Can I add you? And if it lines up with what they're looking for, they're going to say yes. So that's a win right there. And then you can keep in touch with them over time for weeks and months and maybe even years to come. So the other thought here is, if you are noticing similar people calling for a similar issue, what's an example? I was going to say social anxiety, but those groups don't necessarily fill very well. Whatever that thing might be, right? Then you can go to the practice owner and say, I'm getting a lot of calls for this particular issue. And if the practice already offers groups, fantastic. But if they don't, you could make that suggestion just as an idea. It might be a no, but what if we, is there any chance that one of the therapists could run a group for parents of teens who are using social media too much? Right. Something like that, right? And then that's a way to obviously help more people, more potential clients, and the practice can make money, and it's a good thing all around. And that's how I always like to develop groups anyways, because I've tried to create groups that I thought were clever.
Right.
I created this one time. What was it called? I think I called it the Senior Squad. And it was like, I was like, what if we had a group? There was a support group for graduating high school seniors. Because they're going through the same things. Their parents are going through the same things, the application process, whether they're going to college or not. And it's stressful, and they would love this. And I got absolutely nobody to sign up for it. So
you're in the group by yourself.
Oh my goodness. No, I never started it. Right.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So it's always good to start groups and offerings that, people are looking for. Yeah.
Right.
So on that same trajectory, you can offer them maybe a free resource if the practice has already has something like that, which I think is really a good idea. In the past, I've done plenty of ebooks and online courses and various different things. But if somebody in the practice has created a resource that you can share, and that potentially also gets them on the email list, maybe,
right,
or not. It's not. I mean, that's the most important thing there. But if the practice owner has written a short ebook on dealing with anxiety in your 30s or whatever that might be, they would be honestly probably pretty shocked to be able to receive that resource,
right,
as a free supportive thing for them. So that's a great idea. And I've seen some practices that have like sort of a series of ebooks or maybe even mini courses. And I think that's amazing. It takes extra work for sure. But how good would it feel as the intake coordinator to have to say no, but to also be able to say, and we can offer you this, and this. Right. And that person's going to be very happy.
And it's one of those things that takes work initially in the beginning. And then once it's done, and you are being able to add value, great customer service. And then, as you mentioned, as the intake coordinator, having an alternative instead of just saying no.
Definitely. And the last one, kind of the obvious one, is refer them to other local resources, whether that's other therapists, low fee clinics or agencies, or other resources that they can take advantage of. So no, we don't have a waiting list, but here are several recommendations, right?
Right. So I have a question. If you say, let's say you told somebody, the wait list is 3 weeks, and after that period of time, you don't have any openings and you're regularly following up, would it be a good practice then to refer them out and say, you have the option to continue waiting if you'd like. It's now this amount of time, but here are some referrals. I mean, I think that would just go a long way too in your customer service.
Yeah. I don't know what that time frame would be, but that definitely makes sense. I think putting them on the waiting list and also giving them the referrals at the same time is not a bad idea.
Okay.
And then if you follow up in 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever that time frame is, you could give them the referrals again and ask them if they want to stay on the waiting list.
Right.
That's not a bad idea.
Just call in to see if you were able to find anybody from the list I gave you before.
Right.
And right. Okay.
Absolutely. One other sort of quick tip is, and we've mentioned this in one of the trainings previously, but if it's not directly related to a waiting list, but if you've got people, if you want to review the referral log, go back 1, 2, or 3 months, and if you've highlighted people who never responded, who actually you never connected with, 1, 2, 3 voicemails, and then they never got in touch with you. Not a bad idea to reach out to them, obviously when there's openings, not when there's a waiting list.
Right.
But that's that sort of friendly, hope you found somebody for, what you're looking for. But if you didn't, we're here if you need us.
Right.
So that's kind of a nice touch. So there you go. Those are the pros and cons and the best practices for operating a waiting list. And I would always say, one of our core values at Productive Therapists is to search for simple solutions. So if whatever you're doing now is stressful, overwhelming, and difficult, ask yourself this question: what if this were easy?
Right.
And then follow that line of thinking to what the solution could be. And it could be something like we mentioned before. If you're constantly talking to people on the phone, telling them no, trying to manage waiting lists, and it's just too much, then maybe the practice can switch to a Google form on the contact page,
right,
that populates that waiting list for you and automatically directs them to the referrals. And then you'll have to find something else to do with your time.
Right.
Yeah. But obviously the priority is to have streamlined workflows and also to provide the best customer service possible. And those are some ideas for you. Hope you enjoyed it.